Hello, everyone, and boy, do I have some good news for you. We get to roleplay our characters in Dungeons and Dragons. Well, don't just take it from me, take it from Wizards of the Coast. The Radiant Citadel has great advice for authentically portraying different cultures. Now, I want to give a shout out to RPG Pundit, another YouTube channel, which has pointed this out to me. I didn't come across this myself, but I thought I would do a video on it anyway. So, let's just take a look at this and see what Wizards of the Coast has to say about role-playing different cultures. The announcement of Dungeons & Dragons' latest adventure anthology, Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel, was met with much excitement earlier this year. Really? In addition to featuring 13 short standalone adventures for 5th edition players to explore, the book marks another important step for D&D in terms of diversity and representation. Each adventure takes place in and around a new location called the Radiant Citadel, a floating city filled with different kinds of people. And they were written and crafted by a diverse set of POC writers who brought their own cultures, histories, and mythology to the table. Now, as exciting as this is, the prospect of running a Radiant Citadel adventure may prove intimidating, especially for dungeon masters and players who don't belong to any of the cultures depicted. The last couple of years have seen a long overdue and important reckoning in regard to authentic representation, and this book is a product of a long push to amplify a wider array of voices everywhere, including at the tabletop. Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel, when run well, offers an excellent opportunity to explore and experience other cultures and mythologies. And the book has some good advice for how to balance gameplay and sensitivity that's universally useful for all manner of D&D adventures. Wow. The first chapter of Radiant Citadel includes a brief but vital section titled Thoughtful Introductions. This implores DMs and players to think about how they roleplay and portray different groups, particularly in terms of descriptions. For example, it suggests describing everyone's features, not just those who are different, and providing the details on a character's appearance that avoid stereotypes. Providing more information on someone's physical appearance, from their hair to their skin tone to their clothing and accessories, will make them feel like real individuals rather than harmful caricatures. The book also suggests focusing on what's familiar rather than simply pointing out what's different to help ground the experience for players and their characters. So my question is, with this paragraph here, what exactly is it that they think we're doing? Do they think that do they think that our players walk into a certain place and maybe there's a dwarf in there and they've got this stereotypical Irish accents, which that's about the representation that's about how I do it. But it's not like they walk in and we show them beating their wife and drinking a shitload of whiskey. No, they're doing their own little thing. So the fact that they even have to address this is asinine. Since Radiant Citadel introduces so many new cultures to D&D, each with plenty of detail and history, odds are at least something in the adventures will be unfamiliar to players. Rather than explaining everything at once, the book suggests letting the adventure reveal the world. It encourages DMs to skip any details that don't pertain to what the party is doing, instead letting them learn as these things come up through the session. DMs should also find opportunities to show off more of the culture when such things would logically arise, such as a dinner, or probably a diner is what they mean to say, copy editor, or tavern, providing an opportunity to describe the cuisine, or a crowded public place, opening up the chance to talk about different styles of dress. Again, I ask, what the hell do they think we're doing? What do they think we're doing? I really just don't understand what they're getting at. This is it. It's a pointless article, and I apologize because I don't have the original text in front of me. The thing is that this section that they're describing here is actually a free promotional chapter from the book itself. Now, that promotion actually ran out, I think it was like June 28th, and I was just now made aware of it. And God forbid I actually give them my money at this point. I will not give Wizards of the Coast my money at this point. But still, like, without being able to see the exact text as to what this article is referencing, I'm just curious as to what exactly it is that they think that we DMs are doing when we describe certain things. Now, of course, I'm going to have a lot of fun describing this ridiculous scene here. See, this is the problem that I have with D&D as it stands right now, is the pussification of D&D. Everything's got to cater to all sensibilities. And if on the scant possibility, there might be someone who identifies with this, please point them out to me, please. Other than someone who gets off on that kind of thing, nobody identifies with this. The only people who like to see this kind of thing are people who just blow their load on some perceptually marginalized community being represented. The thoughtful introduction section concludes with the important message that while it's okay to explore different cultures in D&D, such a thing needs to be done with care. Beyond the simple and obvious reminder not to treat different cultures as costumes, it asks players, think about how they're portraying different characters. No matter where they hail from, the player characters and NPCs of the Radiant Citadel are fully realized individuals with hopes and fears, just like anyone else in any other D&D setting. Come on. Come on! Of course, no DM is going to give every single NPC in a campaign their own backstory and personality. There's going to be stereotypical people in their campaign. But the trick is how they tailor that setting. So you could have a person of color in a traditional European setting. If you want to. It doesn't matter. It's all about the customs of the world that the players are exploring and the world that you as a dungeon master create. Now, of course, some of these things are going to be based on real world things because what we know is what we portray. So the thing that gets me is that now Wizards of the Coast has given us express permission. They've given us permission to roleplay certain characters, but make sure you do it the way that we want you to. Because we wouldn't want to hurt any of the delicate sensibilities of the people at your table. Well, if anybody knows the delicate sensibilities of anybody at the table, it's going to be the dungeon master. And if you don't, well, it's probably a failure on your part. And anybody who's going to get all bent out of shape on some stereotypical representation, some stereotypical portrayal of a perceived marginalized group, chances are they're probably not that fun to play with in the first place. So I can represent Asian characters as long as they're not good at math. That one's going to get me kicked off YouTube. But there is a goal with this, and you saw the previous video that I made about this campaign setting, you'll know that this entire time I've thought that this whole campaign setting is a political stunt, and I'm not the only one. Via Wargamer, D&D's Radiant Citadel reminds us of the political power of joy. Now, I'm not going to read this whole article because it's rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. But the author of the article does get to the point which I've been saying basically this whole time. Ever since that first article that I read from Sci-Fi, where the first 5 paragraphs were about the skin color of the authors. Despite classes, settings, and characters taking inspiration from other cultures for decades, this is arguably the first time that a diverse team of non-white creators has been able to take control of their stories in a D&D setting. Has been able to take control of their stories in a D&D setting. As if people were not letting people who have different skin colors other than mine write D&D modules. You go on DM's Guild, I guarantee you that there's going to be all kinds of D&D modules written by people who these people are describing, who this young woman is describing, I should say. And rather than create a setting filled with darkness, corruption, and trauma, they've created a Technicolor sanctuary that welcomes all, as if all of the other ones were not welcoming. Now, albeit, you play Curse of Strahd, obviously that setting is, it's dark and foreboding, and it is a gothic horror. That's the tone of the campaign. In fact, the setting itself, I don't believe really needs to be welcoming for the most part. It's the table. It's the people you play with that are supposed to be welcoming. And if they're not, don't fucking play with them. It's as simple as that. Whether intentionally or not, this choice makes a political statement. Just what I've been saying. Although I am a white author and can't pretend to have authority on the experience of black and brown people, I am an autistic woman. See, there's a point right there. Well, no, that's 2 points. Autistic, mental disability, and girl who finds my own life politicized in other ways. How? Tell me how. Tell me how, please. Tell me how. It seems to me like you're politicizing your own life. But you don't get points unless you politicize your own life because nobody else cares about you. And this has led me to believe firmly in the power of joy as a political act because God knows the last thing we want black people to do is have fucking fun. We want, as long as white people are the only people who get to have fun, job's done. More particularly, an act of protest, because those are the times that we're in. Mostly peaceful D&D games. Joy disrupts the narrative that is often set for marginalized people by those around them. And what narrative is that? What narrative in 2022 is set for marginalized groups by the people around them? Please tell me. Please elaborate on all of this. Elaborate on all of this, because it sounds to me like you're making all of this up. You like D&D and you like politics or you like social justice, so you're using this to justify your own political stances or your own marginalized socioeconomic stance. I don't even know. I'm at a loss for words. My vocabulary isn't working with me right now because this is ridiculous. This is all just ridiculous. Large amounts of trauma porn exist in popular media designed to focus on the most traumatic aspects of a marginalized identity to elicit pity from its non-marginalized audience. People who do not belong to that community leave feeling comforted by the fact they are aware of and sympathetic with such issues. Meanwhile, the communities spotlighted are often far from reassured. Joy is the antidote to trauma porn. Pleasant and safe setting like the Radiant Citadel are a reminder that black and brown communities are made up of three-dimensional people whose lives amount to more than just suffering. Oh my God. This woman has created a narrative in her head that she cannot shake. You see, she's done this to herself. But I'm going to tell you, wizards threw out this bait. She took that bait and they're just reeling her in. They're just reeling her in. And they threw out this bait by making the predominant selling point of this fucking module the race of the authors. 13 people of color. Out of how many? How many people? So 13 out of 15? 13 out of 150? I don't know. Hard to say. But you know, it's like, again, just like I said in my previous video about this very same module. The fact that they put so much emphasis on the race of the authors of this module makes this module a political statement and a political statement alone. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't some good stuff in here. Maybe there is. There might be some good stuff in here, but God knows if I'm going to find out because I ain't buying this shit. Because I ain't buying something that reinforces a political narrative. That's not why I spend my money. I spend my money because I want to have fun with something. And being constantly reminded about how I am an oppressor because I don't fit a certain marginalized group is, well, it's not fun. It's not fun. Now, I did look at Hasbro's stock price, and it has been trending downward a little bit. Not enough to say it fits the whole get woke, go broke narrative. Probably due to inflation. Not as many people are buying their shit. And why would they? You know? Yet another reason why I won't spend my money on this. Let me show you something. This is my world. And I know that it's not the most elaborate of maps. You know, I'm still sort of a noob at making maps and things like that. But it's not about the map. What I want to tell you about here. What I want to tell you about is what's in it. So you see, you've got all these different little aisles here. There are uncontacted tribes in these. And yes, this is a tropical location, and yes, these people are outside all the time, so yes, they do have darker skin tones. They're not enslaved. In fact, they are probably the happiest people in this whole setting because they're happy in their simplicity, their simplistic living. Now, doesn't that say a little bit of something? As opposed to portraying them as an enslaved or oppressed race? Stupid? No. In fact, in this world, they're the only people, up until recent events, which I won't get into, but they're the only people who could still perform magic. Because of stories and practices that were passed down through the generations. Now, there is slavery in my world. But it's not these people. In fact, it's half-elves. Who are predominantly of lighter skin tone. Because they're not from here. You can see, I've built this the way that I wanted to. It had nothing to do with previously oppressed groups or anything. I built it off of something that I know and that I'm familiar with, and that's, 17th century Caribbean, however the fuck you want to say it. But the fact of the matter is, you can't tell me how to represent different cultures. You can't, because why the fuck would I follow your advice? I'm gonna portray the natives in these islands exactly how I want to portray them. And that is jovial and simplistic. And by simplistic, I mean simplistic in lifestyle. They really want for nothing. And I'm going to portray the slaves as an oppressed people, because that's what they are. They are oppressed. Just like a lot of people in these larger settlements are oppressed in other ways, which I won't get into here. But the fact of the matter is, this is a ham-fisted way to push the message into Dungeons and Dragons. They're trying to force their way into your table. They're trying to force their way onto your table and dictate how you portray certain things, how you portray different cultures, even if it's not what you envisioned. It's just like the whole, and yeah, I'm going to get into it, it's just like the whole pronoun thing. The only time somebody uses your pronouns are when they're not talking to you. They're talking about you. So when you want to dictate what your pronouns are to somebody else, that is you forcing your way into somebody's mind to get them to change the way that they think, because we think in language. That is how we think. And if you control somebody's language, you control the way that they think. And that ain't happening with this. I've got this set up how I want it. My players like it. At least they tell me they do. So why the fuck would I change it? So anyway, that's all I got for you for now. Rant over. I'm done. This made me a lot more upset than it really should have. But, you know, who cares? Maybe it's good content. We'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching. You all have yourselves a good day. Go pick up something heavy. Peace.